Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So I tried to take a day off. I really did. Things are accelerating too fast, so we need to talk about it. In the last 24 hours, a lot of news has come to light, and the big one is coming, guys. That things are shaping up for a major war in Europe, and we're going to talk about the reasons why. Now, I just listened to a press conference with John Kirby, who basically has said the same thing, that, you know, this supposed pullback or retreat, as they're calling it, really it was just a fake out, you know, to attract the Ukrainian troops to that region, keep them occupied while the Russians could go do other things in other parts of the country, and now they're going to go full bore into the Donbass, like we've been talking about for some time now. Now, John Kirby, at around the 40-minute mark of that press conference, indicated that they weren't willing to, a reporter had asked him, the one reporter who asked a tough question throughout that whole press conference, he asked him, you know, with these Bucha war crime allegations, can't we just look at the satellite data to see, because they record, you know, images of what's going on there, and can't we just see the satellite data to see when exactly this happens, because we know that the Russians had left that area at a certain period of time. And basically Kirby's answer was like, hey, you know, what did you just say? Shut the hell up. Sit down. We're not going to be investigating that. We're going to take them on their word, the Ukrainians that is, and that's the end of story. So take from that what you will. Either way, as we've talked about before, we're not going to sit here and speculate as to what has happened. But indeed, if a crime has happened, typically that crime should be investigated, I would think, don't you? And I think nobody should be against or above the investigation of a very, very serious atrocity that was committed there. Now, what this means is that things are escalating majorly. Now, to add to that, guys, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia have decided to close their land borders with Russia and Belarus. The event completely isolates and cuts off the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad with Russia. This is a kind of like a remote part of Russia, which is not connected directly to the landmass. I believe it is in it's not in the Baltic Sea. I can't remember what that sea is where they were going to build the pipeline. Not greatest with geography, okay? Anyways, this move is declared a cause of war for Russia, something that has been repeated many times, okay? Blocking off the main Russian landmass with their satellite state, or whatever you want to call it, province of Kaliningrad, apparently for them is an act of war. Now they've closed the borders, or they're going to be closing the borders with the Baltic countries, the Baltic states, the far eastern European countries, which are getting primed for war. It does appear that they are getting primed for some major war. Now, the more I listen to people who are in the know, I'm not talking about NBC and CNN and all these you know what organizations, okay? I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the real people who are in the know about what NATO's capabilities are within that region and the Russian capabilities. And the more I learn about it, guys, the worse it seems for NATO. It starts to look like if Russia wanted to, they could go and steamroll that place, no problem. And this whole Article 5, we're going to come to your rescue and, you know, use nukes and risk existential annihilation of the human species for these small Baltic countries. Not necessarily. And that is what I'm hearing right now. So keep that in mind. Now, in fact, the commander of the Lithuanian army, Lieutenant General Volodymyras Rufis, I'm going to butcher that, and I already did, hastened to warn Moscow, saying that there was a joint defense plan to defend Suwalki corridor leading to Kaliningrad. Now, there's a lot more to this message that I received, but let's just see how things play out in the next few days. This is corroborated by other news reports that Poland vows to go it alone to block its Belarus border, even if the EU doesn't okay the move. Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, which share borders with Belarus, are said to be in discussions to prevent ships to and from Russia. Now, this was 4 days ago. Okay, that thing I just read you was from today. So keep that in mind, that this thing is absolutely escalating. And I have said all along that the Russians are in a predicament now where there is no more trust with the EU. If they were to just take eastern Ukraine, then they potentially leave open the possibility that the western Ukraine is going to remilitarize, flare up and create more problems for them in the future. And I'm just looking at this from their perspective because that's all we can go on right now. Nobody really knows what they're thinking, but we have to imagine it from their perspective if we're going to try to get a sense of where this thing is going to go. I cannot see them just settling on certain parts of that country. They're going to have to lock it all down in order to achieve whatever sort of security guarantees they are looking for. And for that reason, this is why Poland is so spooked right now. Okay, this is why they're wanting nukes in the country. They're asking for nuclear weapons to be put in the country. This is why all these countries are sending them missile defense systems. This is why Australia even has expedited the delivery of long-range missile systems for their Navy, okay, by 5 years. All of these timelines are being moved forward. They are preparing for something. Remember, don't listen to what they say. Look at what they're doing. And they're all preparing. All the military budgets are getting blown up because a lot of the European military is old. It's stale. It's a lot of NATO forces, are, yes, they're trained. The ones that are there are well trained, but not in the capacity to fight off the Russians if they decided to actually invade. And especially if the Russians were able to conscript some of the Ukrainian military and integrate some of them and then continue to move eastward. Because remember, Ukraine's got a big military. And what the Russians, I think, are looking for right now, the word on the street is that, in my theory, I kind of hinted at this many times, and a lot of people threw shade at me for it, but that there is a reason why Zelensky's still around, okay? And because in order to officiate any sort of annexing of that territory, it needs, in order to win the hearts, minds, and spirits of the people, it has to be officiated by Zelensky or somebody who is revered by the population. So, and once they've done that, then they've basically got whatever is left of the Ukrainian military on their side to continue to move eastward. Now, I'm not saying that that's the grand master plan, but when you have a situation in which you have all of these Eastern European countries feeding Ukraine because they know, or at least they're worried about, the war coming to them. So from their perspective, they're saying, hey, if we can keep this war at arm's reach or away from us, but not directly in our territory, keep it in Ukraine, keep funneling weapons and stuff in Ukraine, that's much better for us because our security is potentially at risk. And then, of course, all it's going to take is some exchange at the border or around the border between these 4 countries that border, or 5 countries that border Ukraine, and then all of a sudden, Russia has an excuse to, start encroaching on that territory, Article 5 or not. Now, lots of other stories here about increase in food prices. This was a big one that I just caught wind of. Aldi grocery purchase prices should increase by up to 50%. Aldi, a German discount supermarket, does not want to give exact figures according to funky information. Not sure what that means. However, the group assumes that the purchase prices for groceries could become between 20 to 50% more expensive in the next few weeks. Now, I heard that this is just specific commodities, but 20 to 50%, even if it is only meat, sausage, dairy, okay, all the hearty proteins, right? All the proteins which require animal husbandry or, just animal agriculture, all these prices are going up. And of course, all of those things require more energy. I'm seeing, people are sending me emails from around, North America, around the world for that matter, of the cost of certain items, and especially meat, and the insane prices of food, guys. So this is not looking good. This is shaping up, because think about it. When are people most likely to want to go to war? Probably, when they've got nothing else to lose, okay? When they're poor, when they're, war is a great way to kind of take attention away from these issues. And that could very well be what happens when the price of natural gas goes through the roof, like it's going to in Britain and all around Europe. And Europe's going to get hit the hardest with all this. You see, North America, Our gas is independent because it's all through pipelines. It's natural gas. We don't have to liquefy it, send it over there, whatever the case. So, or keep it in a liquid form, or I'm not sure exactly how that works. But Europe is going to be hamstrung by all this, and it's not going to be good. And for that reason, you know, they might be more willing to enter a war if that's the case. Now, I want to read you guys an email that was sent from me from somebody who's from Poland, who shared information with me before, who seems very sincere and a good faith actor. So let's just listen to what they have to say. Hello again, this is such and such from Poland. Poland's internal situation is very complicated, and I'm afraid that our politicians are exploiting the Ukraine conflict in a very irresponsible way to wage internal political wars. This must be taken into an account in analyzing the current situation. I agree 100%. All these guys going to visit, you know, here, there, and everywhere. You know, you got to understand that they're doing it for selfish reasons. All the posturing from Boris Johnson and all these guys who, because of the pandemic and the mishandling of it and the authoritarian crackdown thereafter, are in a lot of people's bad books, and they're trying to take attention away from it. I could elaborate on that, but at this point, I guess it's sufficient to know that a few people realize how completely incompetent and amateurish the populist Polish government is in this area of international relations and diplomacy. According to Strategy and Future Analysis, Polish experts on military strategy agree on several things. 1. In the current state of the Polish army, as well as the command structure, Russian forces would need a few days to reach the capital, and our forces are ill prepared to resist. I believe they only have a few hundred tanks or something like that. Like Germany is completely gutted. Remember, Germany is still under an occupation, guys, of the U.S. Army. After World War II, you know, I mean, we're still in that world. So is Japan. That's why I've always suspected, you know, maybe there's some people within those governments who are just itching to get their hands or just to remilitarize and get the U.S. out of there, because you never know what can happen. Anyways, Russian forces would need a few days to reach the capital, and our forces are ill prepared to resist. Currently, the Polish army is in a state of limbo. The army is dominated by etatism, bureaucracy, outdated strategy, and an overall lack of battle readiness. Deep reforms are needed, and Ukraine is cited as an example to follow. 2, you are correct. Polish experts are skeptical as to how Article 5 would be invoked. Our history shows that we are right to be skeptical, as Poland was abandoned by the West multiple times during World War II and the Cold War. It is uncertain in what way and to what degree NATO would respond to military aggression by Russia. What is agreed upon is that a minimum of 2 weeks of independent defense by our forces is needed in case of a kinetic conflict with Russia in order to force NATO's hand to get involved directly in the conflict. Just like Ukraine, if Russia annexed Ukraine in 3 days, it is unrealistic to expect the West to react with such force as it did. Only the resistance of Ukrainian military caused the strong and polarizing reaction of the world to the invasion. Poland knows that it would have to resist for about 2 weeks to ensure a full commitment of NATO. This all comes on the heels of Russian political pundits threatening to nuke Warsaw on live television. And you are only seeing, guys, all of these attempts to enforce our own digital iron curtain on Russia, it's only emboldening them over there. All this talk, I don't believe a word of it when they say that Putin is becoming less popular over there. It's only having the opposite effect, especially when they start to see, like that video of the POWs being shot in the leg and stuff. Guys, something like that is going to infuriate people. When people start seeing guys coming home in body bags, whether or not they're on the bad end of history or not, and remember, we're just analyzing this objectively. I'm not, taking the side. I'm no fanboy for authoritarianism and making apologies and excusing away a lot of the atrocities committed by the Kremlin at all. Some people do that. We don't do that here. What we can say, though, is that all of this stuff that's happening and these videos of torture on Russian POWs, that's making people mad. When they see Russians coming back in body bags and this, that, and what have you, and when they see, attacks on Russian soil, guys, there's going to be more support for a war effort. And all of this stuff is going to backfire. And you can see all of these countries around the world, whether it's Serbia, Pakistan, India, China, all of the countries that buy stuff from Russia, Sub-Saharan, all the Sub-Saharan African countries, a lot of countries in the Middle East, a lot of countries out in Southeast Asia, they're keeping their mouths shut because they know that Russia has got the gear, China makes the gear, and all we really do is sit around and, quite frankly, make videos like this. We are a service-based economy. That doesn't mean that we can't fire up the engines of industry once again. And you know that whole "we can do it" thing? I wonder who the next "we can do it" avatar is going to be. You know, remember the women, you know, how the women in the war effort and all that? Who do you think, I can't remember what her name was. She had a name. What do you guys think it's going to be? Is it going to be somebody who like is completely genderless and, you know, completely raceless, just like some gray blob, you know, some amorphous blob on the screen that says "we can do it"? I don't know. Anyways, let me know what your propaganda predictions are for when we do finally have to reindustrialize and go to war. Ron over at Atlas Survival Shelters was in the news once again on Canadian media. Surviving in style, Canadian demand for luxury bunkers goes through the roof. Now, for some reason, guys, you know, I'm not tooting my own horn or anything, but I think by now, if you Google Canada and prepper, my name would come up. But for some reason, a lot of these guys don't reach out to me. The CBC did once. They wrote a piece on me once. It wasn't a hit piece. I only agreed to do it if it wasn't a hit piece. But, you know, I'm not mentioned at all in this article, even though I'm sure, because when you research Atlas Canadian, it's almost a guarantee that my name's going to come up next to that. So I'm not sure why they don't want my input on these kind of things. A lot of them, I think it's because they know I call them on their bullshit, and that's why they don't do it. So, anyways, let's just forget about that, shall we? Anyways, shout out to Ron over at Atlas Survival. Go help him out. He was the victim of a crime lately, and not that he needs help because the bunker business is absolutely through the roof right now. Biden calls for Putin to face war crimes trial. Okay. And of course, this is on the heels of him not backpedaling on the comments that he was backpedaling when he said that Putin should be taken out. So we're at war, guys. This is World War III, no matter how you slice it. Look at what's being done. Look at where the money is going. While people are starving, not starving yet, but while people are struggling paycheck to paycheck, living on credit, living in debt, the price of everything is going up, and they're talking about spending all the money on weapons. What do you think is coming? Obviously, we know what's coming. World War III is coming. Sorry to say it, but that's what's happening. That's what we can see. You got to be really cognitively dissonant to believe otherwise. Lithuania expels Russian ambassador. Lithuania has moved to expel Russia's ambassador to the country, its foreign minister says. Russian ambassador was asked to leave Lithuania. Lithuanian ambassador in Ukraine is coming back to Kiev. He added in a statement that Lithuania stands in full solidarity with Ukraine and the Ukrainian people who are victims of Russia's unprecedented aggression. So this is a major development. Like all of these expelled diplomats and ambassadors, this all happened prior to the invasion of Ukraine. Now, some people might still be wondering, well, what's going on with this whole Kiev situation? I think I might have touched on it at the beginning of this video. I don't know, all these videos are just blending into one now. But what you need to know is was a fake out. It was an Austerlitz-style fake out. They had that big 40-mile convoy going down to Kiev. Everybody, you know, they probably moved, the Ukrainians probably moved a lot of their forces to that region, tying them up so that Russia could go and do its whatever it had to do in other places in the country. Now they're going to regroup. God only knows what's coming next, but it's starting to look like they are going to go in heavy in the east, and I'm sure that they're planning something else. They may be getting ready to go back into Kiev very hard and, you know, blitzkrieg this time. It's possible because clearly what they were doing last time was creating a massive diversion. A lot of people will say, well, why couldn't they take it? Well, they probably could have taken it, but they didn't want to destroy the place. It's a thing in modern warfare, you cannot take a city without having a massive amount of guys. Like, I mean, you'd probably literally take literally need like 500,000 guys to take that city and to do it in such a way where you didn't have to completely level the place. Like it's not going to happen, okay? So the only way they could have taken it is if they leveled it. And clearly they don't want to level it for historical reasons. God only knows what the reasons are, but I think we kind of hinted about that with respect to needing some legitimate figure to stabilize that country and keep it stabilized. Lavrov accuses Ukraine of stage-managed provocation. Russia's foreign minister has dismissed Ukrainian accusations that Moscow's forces committed atrocities. Now, this one is up to debate. It could be either way. I don't know, because there hasn't been really an independent investigation. We are going on images that we're seeing. And is there reason to doubt those images? I mean, some people have made some arguments to suggest that certain things perhaps don't add up with it, and maybe there's more to the backstory, which is not to say that, I mean, some people just go right to the opposite viewpoint in a contrarian sense right when a story like this comes out. We're not advocates of that. We're advocates of saying, okay, let's let the UN go and do their independent investigation, see what they come up with. Plain and simple. Simple as that. Sharp price rises, it pushed millions in UK toward poverty overnight. The cost of heating a home, taking a shower, cooking a meal rose to new heights for millions of people in the UK on Friday as household energy prices hit a record days before a payroll tax increase also comes into force. Now, from what I hear, that the average cost of living in the UK is going to reach a record this year in terms of the increased cost of living. Never before. This will be the worst year for the UK in terms of a reduction in the standard of living. Isn't that absolutely unbelievable in the day and age that we are living in, when we are promised flying cars and all this stuff? Here we are, back in the ass end of humanity like we always have been. I've been telling people for a long time, look, nothing has changed with people. We are the same damn people we were in the 1800s. Nothing fundamentally has changed about human psychology. In fact, I would say we've degenerated in a lot of ways. And I was watching a video yesterday. I always watch these old videos of like the 1900s of these restored footage, and it's put into 60 frames per second. And it was of this street in Paris, I believe. And just the chaos. This was before they had like street lights, and so you have trolleys, you have horses in carriages turning around, you have cars, you have people walking every which way, and it was complete chaos. But it flowed so smoothly, and nobody got in an accident. And it was like, these people still had their instincts. They still had their survival instincts. They had to have their head on a swivel at all times. We've totally lost that ability. If the shizzy hit the fizzy today, most of us are going to be screwed. That's why enduring hardship and having to endure hardship without a resupply. Okay, and I'm going to talk about this in another video, but essentially the gist of it is that a lot of people will try to simulate hardship in our society. They'll go do some crazy thing, in order to get an adrenaline rush. They'll go to the gym or something like that. Or they'll maybe even work a hard job. Maybe the farmer, working all day in the field. You work a hard job, but at the end of the day, you come home to a climate-controlled place. You have a nice big meal. You take your few days off and you go get some R&R. But guess what? Historically, and in many places in the world today, people are working that hard without the resupply, without the restoration. And that is how you get hard. That is how you get tough. Okay, and there's people around the world right now who are tough, thick-skinned. We are not thick-skinned. We are weak. We are a weak population of people, guys. And if it goes down, a lot of people are going to get culled extremely fast. More on that in a future video. So I think that's all I got for you today. But things are not looking good. Oh yeah, and one more positive thought on the topic of, the promise of technology and globalized technology and all that stuff, the promise of that coming to an end. Russia says looking at China, Middle East nations to fund ExoMars mission after EU pulls out over Ukrainian invasion. And they've also said that they are no longer going to work with the international community towards space exploration and things of that nature. So this is the great decoupling. We're going to have Eurasia versus, I don't know, what are we going to call ourselves? I guess NATO, right? It's not looking good, guys. This is only the beginning of this thing. It's going to intensify. So this is not like, oh, you got to live in fear and, like be on edge all the time. No, you got to live your life. You got to enjoy every single day while you can. Don't let this prepping thing change your life in any way, asides the fact that you are just putting aside things and you are preparing for times to get hard. Ideally, people would be preparing to live a more self-reliant lifestyle. So the purpose of this channel is not to get people scared. Okay, and if it gets you scared, then you should stop watching it. To be brutally honest, if this information gets you scared, you need to do something else because it's not good for your mental health. What it should do is get you informed and get you more inquisitive about stuff that's going on in the world. That's the sole purpose of this stuff, because information is one of the most precious commodities, especially in the fog of war, especially with all the white noise of this postmodern media mine. I was going to say the F word, but it is what it is, guys. So we got to stay informed. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Canadian Prepper out.